I'm so happy today to have Alicia the Contrarian here. It sounds funny kind of saying that, but that's a cool name, I think.
I appreciate that. No, I appreciate being here.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this. I just always really appreciate like your takes online, and you just seem like a voice of reason in Oregon to me. So,
Oh, wow. That's a new thing. Haven't gotten that in a while.
really?
Yeah, no.
Well, I was gonna say, especially like, sometimes especially in the Twitter world, like things can get really heated, and I feel like you have a really like temperate kind of take a lot of the time, and I just appreciate your reasonableness. So
Well,
I don't know if you
yeah,
take that as a
no.
compliment or whatever,
Yeah, I'll take it as a compliment.
but
I appreciate that. I appreciate
uh,
you having me.
yeah, no problem. Yeah, I wanted to just start with a little. It's kind of Fourth of July. This will probably come out after Fourth of July, but
Mhm.
is there anything particular about the holiday that you like or memories that you remember about it?
Um, Memories. I mean, food.
Cook
I am a
cookouts.
huge foodie. I love to cook.
Okay,
So I already got the ribs.
nice.
Yeah, we're gonna get all that started tomorrow morning, and I'm gonna cook nice and slow. And
Do some
food is, yes.
barbecuing
I'm a little heartbroken that like we don't get to have all the nice, beautiful fireworks, right? Like,
in a smaller community, or just like.
no, just in Oregon in
Oh,
general.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
like
I guess it
the
is like a statewide ban, pretty much.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like we like down south in like Texas and um
It's totally different, right? Like,
it's just totally different.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're
like we
doing all
have
the
like nice, big,
mortars or
beautiful,
whatever. Yeah.
yes, all the things. Yeah.
Um, okay. Yeah. I was going to say, like, I was trying to remember this earlier, but when I first moved here, this was like 2006, I think.
Hmm.
Um, have you ever been to the Waterfront Blues Fest? You know how they do that?
No, I have not. That's one of the things. It's on my
Yeah.
bucket list.
It's every 4th of July they do that. They're setting it up
Yeah.
now. But that was going on, and literally the first day I like drove into Portland, that was going on, and I was on the Hawthorne Bridge just watching that, listening to blues music. It was a cool memory. Um, and I had been to Portland before, like my siblings lived up here, but it was just like it was a different time for Portland, and it was just a cool memory. So, yeah, I wanted to start with like, tell me about why you call yourself the contrarian, because I feel like that a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But like, when did you start calling yourself that, and like, why do you call yourself that? I think it's cool.
It's I don't even know when exactly it came about, but I was listening to um there's this podcast that two gentlemen, very smart people. Um it's Glenn Lowry and um John McWhorter.
Yeah.
And John McWhorter, he used the term contrarian, and then he explained it, and he's like this, he's a brilliant linguist, and he used the term contrarian in a way where he talked about it as being someone who kind of challenges the status quo, but also likes to dive a little bit deeper into kind of what the discussion is.
Hmm.
Because oftentimes when we're having like discussions or conversations, especially in politics, it's this either or, and it's a very black and white thing. Um, then you have somebody like myself who's like, I don't live in that either or in black and white space. I live in the gray and I live in the nuance.
Mm-hmm.
And so the contrarian comes in terms of I challenge status quo, I challenge anything that doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's not necessarily like a bad thing. Um,
I like it. I mean, it's like
it's
a skeptical
Yeah,
outlook. Yeah.
yes. It's just like there's certain ways that like my brain works, and if you need to, if you're gonna give me information and it doesn't make sense to me, I need all those extra different points, like data points, in order for it to make sense to me, and I just ask questions, and a lot of times I get pushback.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, no, you're wrong. And I'm like, well, but how and why am I wrong? And that conversation with in that podcast when he mentioned the word contrarian, it's like that is me.
That's cool.
That's what
Yeah.
I do.
That's like actually way more depth than I was expecting. And I love both those guys. They're really smart. Um, that just would make me think though, were you like ever into like, because it sounds a lot like people that I know that were like, oh, I grew up doing like debate and stuff like that. Was that stuff you
I
did?
did.
You did? Okay.
I did. Yes. I was actually in my senior year, I did Model United States Senate.
Oh, okay. The model
Yeah. So
Senate stuff.
here I
Yeah.
think we have like
UN.
Model UN.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm an Army brat, so I grew up in all kinds of different places, and I did a good chunk of my high school years in Germany.
Wow.
And well, my mom is also German, and there's a whole thing around that. But yeah, so they had the Model United States Senate, and yeah, I did that, and I did debate, and I
That's
did
cool.
all the
That's really
other
cool.
nerdy things.
Yeah. I always kind of wanted to, but I didn't do it. I was like more like in high school, I was like listening to debates, and this was like when like audio, this make me
Yeah.
sound really old, but audio on the internet was like a new thing.
Yeah.
But I would like listen to debates, but I was never cool enough to like join the team. I probably should have, I guess. But
Oh,
that's
I mean,
cool.
I never didn't say that I was good at it, but
Yeah. No, that's a really cool background. Yeah, maybe I'll come back to the veteran stuff because I think that's
Mhm.
really cool too. But I wanted to start with because this is like a topical thing of the governor. I think just signed. I was trying to remember if it was a legislation or if because I thought you said it was an executive order, but she
Yeah.
did something for a statewide cell phone ban, which has
Yeah.
been kind of brewing for a long time.
Yeah.
Like PPS up here kind of did it within the past year, and now it's like a statewide thing. So I was just curious, like you
Yes.
had posted about it, and I've heard from all sorts of different people, like on the pro side, on the like the for and against side. And I've heard good arguments on both, but I'm just curious, like your take on the whole thing. And
Yeah. So it was an executive order that was signed. And from my understanding, it's largely based on legislation that was introduced during the session, but it never made it anywhere. I guess it never got.
didn't get the
Yeah, it
momentum.
didn't. It didn't
Yeah.
go through. Um, Now, the executive order, from my understanding, um, because the governor is by Oregon law the superintendent of the schools
Mm.
or of education.
She's the commander in chief of
Right.
Oregon schools.
Right. So she or the governor position or the governor is then able to create these executive orders. And that's my understanding. So that particular executive order, as I read it, essentially bans the use or I believe it's the use of cell phones, K through 12, and or the presence of cell phones K through 12. And yeah, albeit there are some provisions, I guess, where folks with IEPs and or students with IEPs and 504s and other medical necessities,
Certain
yeah,
exemptions.
can have exemptions. And the local school districts do still get to choose how they implement it.
Mm.
Um, I think one of the things that struck me is that especially over the last like 10 years or so, there's been this move to empower students to be like these autonomous individuals, right? With all the, constitutional rights, and they should and ought to be able to, um, uh, exercise
Hmm.
all the time.
Yeah.
And
There's like a big push to get like that age people voting, like in it. Which is that kind
right,
of what you mean? Like there's this like they
right.
have all the rights as
They have all
adults or
those
whatever.
rights
I don't know.
except for kind of the ones that we want you to have or we don't want you to have. Um, that's a whole nother story too. But to me, it feels a little bit overstepping, and one, that the legislation didn't make it through.
Mm-hmm.
This should be a legislative process. Two, from my understanding, this executive order and the legislation itself also makes it to where students can't use their phones during passing periods, or even during lunch, or right when they're on break, anything like that.
So they just get it when they go home, basically.
Right. Yeah. And to me, that's a First Amendment kind of thing, where I'm like,
I could see that argument.
We're going to teach our kids that they have constitutional rights, or constitutionally protected rights. But we're saying that because they are not, that they're becoming addicted to their phones, that's why we have to ban it. And there's a whole argument to be made about, what if I, as a parent, say that it's okay for my child to have their phone?
Like and parent rights thing.
Yeah. So there are all kinds of different pieces that I think are not necessarily being taken into consideration. I do understand. So from someone who has a psychology background, I very much understand why there is that necessity to create those boundaries for our kids.
That's what I thought your take was, at least from what I read, was really interesting, because like you acknowledge this mental health side of addiction to phones and all that stuff. And but it's like, I could also see this, what you're talking about there, and I could, it's easy to see like legal challenges that could come up for the arguments like you're saying.
Right. I think it's just, it would be a lot better and more effective if we actually taught our kids and young folks about the potential, all the bad things that can happen if you overuse your phone, and right. I mean, or teach them how to have like a co-regulation, right? Or being able to teach them how to not be on the phone constantly.
Yeah. Well, I could see how that'd be like a more like lifelong argument too. If like you're just addressing the core issue of like, you're gonna have to be dealing with this, because adults have it too, like I'm on my phone a lot, and so it makes sense that like you wouldn't just outright ban it, but have like a deeper conversation about like, here's what you need to, this is the reality you're gonna be facing with these mobile devices for the rest of your life.
Exactly. And it's just getting worse. I mean, not necessarily worse, but like there's more and more things that are coming out, and like we're advancing technologically all the time. Like, I mean, at some point in time, we're going to have to learn actually how to navigate those challenges, rather than just banning everything and then saying, "Oh, there, we fixed it."
Yeah, I've heard some compelling arguments too for like, I guess it'd be more like voicing the students' rights stuff, like kind of like you're saying, but like trying to phrase it in the best way that I remember. But it was more like first of all, kids feel a real, I guess, FOMO sense of like. But I've also heard arguments of like kids kind of have less online community if they do it that way, and it's almost more antisocial, so they can't even like, because like, I don't know, if I was growing up today, I would probably communicate with my friends digitally for the most part, like when I'm not in person. So I could see how it like negatively could affect their social life in that way too. But I don't know. It's an interesting kind of thing. For the most part, last year I was saying like I'm totally for it because the negative consequences are crazy for all these apps and stuff. But I don't know. I'm curious about all the arguments, and it's interesting.
Yeah, and I think another part to it is that, so I understand, like my son, he's in high school, and he comes home all the time. He's like, man, like, why can't they just like put their phones away during the class? Like, that's the rule. Like, put your phone away
Right.
while you're in class. Um, and and he said he's done it himself several times where he's like, oh man, I have my phone out and I probably shouldn't have my phone out.
Yeah.
Um, but those are the things that like they are supposed to be learning right now, right? This they're in that developmental stage where we are as adults are supposed to be helping them learn how to navigate the world. Um, and I don't, yeah, I don't think that a ban on something is going to help them do that.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece to it is that it's really, it feels like it's punishment for all
Mm-hmm.
when you have certain people or like just like a relatively, in the grand scheme of things, smaller group of kids who are not abiding by the rules.
Right.
Um,
Because like you're saying, yeah, if somebody was using it properly or in moderation, they're
yeah,
just being
yeah,
lumped in and punished like that.
yeah,
I was thinking too, like I remember hearing from some parents who had students in PPS over the past year or so when they had the ban, and these kids already have like workarounds. They have like two phones, and they
yeah,
like put the dummy phone in the shoe
yeah,
holder thing, and then they have their other one. So it's like I don't know how effective
yeah.
really it's gonna be, but
Yeah, I mean, our kids are not stupid.
yeah,
I
they're way
mean,
better at these phones than we are.
yeah.
So maybe it's probably a good segue to just go back into what are your thoughts on the Oregon education system in general? Like I know I've done so many episodes about um, the state spending level and the outcomes that we get, and it just seems horrible. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on?
Oh man. Um,
There's a lot in there. I know.
there is a lot. That's a loaded question. Um, well, so my I guess expertise or experience really is in like special education.
Hmm.
Um, I oh man, where do you start? It's just the parents and the families that I engage with and interact with, they oftentimes feel completely just excluded from any process that happens in the school. There are parents who are saying that um, uh, even though their kids have an IEP, the school is just not at all abiding by it.
And
And
what is that? Can you explain that for?
IEP is an individualized education plan.
Okay.
So if someone has, or if their student has a disability, I think there's a total of I think like 7 or 8 different eligibility
Sure.
classifications.
Okay.
Um, so if you have someone with, for example, ADHD or Tourette's or
Autism.
autism,
Yeah.
yeah, um, any of those like eligibilities, uh, for the student to receive additional support in order for them to be to receive a fair and appropriate or free and appropriate public education, which is FAPE, that we often refer
Okay.
to. Um,
I'm learning some acronyms
yeah,
today.
yeah. I live in acronym world, um, and yeah. So the IEPs basically have goals on there and accommodations and things like that. Um,
And I should explain too. You're on a board of. I mean, I'll let you explain. What's the?
yeah, so I have the privilege of being part of several different committees that are on the local level and the state level. I used to be on the Oregon Council on Developmental Disabilities, which they are doing some amazing work over there. Um, and then there's another governor appointed council, which is called the System of Care Advisory Council. Uh, so I've had the privilege of being of being able to advocate and for families who navigate some of those systems.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's important to you. Like, that's just something I could tell just from a lot of your posts and stuff. Is that like, do you have kids that are in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I have one of my kids has navigated special education. I do have his permission to talk about it, and because that's one of the things I do. I because he's older now.
Sure, yeah.
So I try to get his
Consent to talk about it. Yeah.
permission,
Yeah.
to talk about things like that. And he's like, whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's
yeah.
seems polite of you or whatever. Or,
But yeah, and we have also, Oregon has I guess one of the lowest spending caps on special education,
Okay.
and right now it's at 11%.
Of the total
Yeah,
budget.
so basically, if a district, so my understanding is that if a district has, for example, 20% of their student population has an IEP, right? The district will only receive funding for 11%
I see.
of those students. So now the district
Seems
has
problematic already.
It seems very problematic, especially, yeah.
Because you're not serving that
No,
population.
no. And yeah, so there are so many different pieces that go into that, and it can be very frustrating. And that's for just one segment of the population of students. We're not even talking about all the other students. And so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a very frustrating
It's an ongoing
process.
battle with the state. No, that's really cool that you're civically engaged and all that stuff.
I will say there are some amazing people that that are in the background, that are trying to make some changes and really be there for our kids and do it well.
It's not all just a bureaucratic machine.
No,
Yeah.
no. And that is the thing that actually I will say that because of my ability and my privilege of being on some of these committees, I probably wouldn't have seen that if I wasn't part of that.
Just from the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's I don't know if that's, I would say it's a slightly optimistic, like it's good to know that there's some good folks involved,
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see here. I was going to say too, it is like, it just seems really important too, because I know I'm not trying to say a cause for this, but it does seem like, there's way more autism diagnosis and all that stuff nowadays. So it just seems increasingly important to address that stuff at a state level, or any kind of local level. Let's see here. Let's talk about your how important like the Second Amendment stuff is to you. I know that like you post about it a lot. I've talked to other guests on like other podcasts too about how it just seems really challenging in Oregon to like, I don't know if there's like a two-sided thing, but there's a constant like pressure on the Second Amendment in Oregon. And I know up here in Portland, like there's people are very anti-gun, and then rural Oregon's kind of the opposite. And I know like we've had some measures recently that have been constitutionally challenged. So I'm just curious, like all your thoughts on that. And also I think like your advocacy for gun rights with women is really cool to me. Like I've known a lot more women up here in Portland even that are like arming up and,
yeah.
And I just think it's, I don't know, it's an expression of their freedom. But yeah, I'm curious about your feelings on that and why you're into it.
Well, it's funny because I didn't start out as being super pro 2A.
Really?
Yeah, no, I
And how much was your military career like? Did that have a hand in that, or?
So I am an Army brat, so I'm a dependent like my dad was in the military.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was in the military. My
It's
sister,
like everyone around you.
everybody
Yeah.
around me,
Yeah.
my husband,
Yeah.
his brothers, so everybody in the military, except me, of course. The contrarian. I've always been the rebel, not doing what other folks were doing. But honestly, it wasn't until I want to say about 5 years or so after I got married to my husband.
Okay.
So my husband, and this is like this that stark difference here. So my husband, he grew up in Texas, in South Texas, and always kind of, like country living, and he's been around firearms since forever and a day. So to him, it wasn't anything.
It's like ordinary
Yeah,
life. Yeah.
it's just a tool,
Mhm.
and you handle it with respect and care, um and that's it. And to me, I actually in high school, I was like, oh yeah, no, the Second Amendment is only for, the militia, and the militia is the National Guard and the Army,
Mm.
and
Like
and
only like official government
yeah,
militias can have it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't grow up with firearms around me at all. Like it just wasn't a thing. Um, and then I I don't know, like the more we moved around and the more I heard about um people talking about the Second Amendment as it being kind of like the redheaded stepchild of the constitutional rights,
Mhm.
or constitutionally protected rights. I'm like, something doesn't sound right there. It just doesn't feel right anymore. And then my husband is like, well, I mean, just let's just go, and let's just go shooting together.
Mhm.
Because to me, it was like, I mean, I'm okay. I don't need it. You go, you do you. Um, and he's just like, let's just go. Like, I'll show you.
Just try it out.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and he was so patient about it. And so the first, like, I want to say like first 5 years or so, it was a lot of just, okay, let me get used to firearms. Um, and then of course the nerdy side of me could not stay away from the policy piece.
Mm.
And so I love policy. And so I started looking into the history
Mhm.
of the Second Amendment. And I used to be under the impression that, right, the Second Amendment also was there to was there basically only for white people,
Mhm.
and that's it. Um,
It's funny because I wrote on here, you had a really interesting thing about um, gun control is incompatible with Juneteenth.
yes,
And
it
I just
is.
thought it struck me as really interesting, but I could see what you mean by that of like, again, an expression of freedom and defense and all
Hmm.
that stuff. Is that kind of what you were getting at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So Juneteenth is, and
Yeah.
that's a whole other thing there. But, yeah. So as I started really reading more about it and researching, um, I kept seeing these very racist laws.
Mm.
And I was like, this sounds so familiar. And so like Measure 114 is like a prime example.
Okay.
You have,
Can you explain that to me? Because I have no idea what that is.
yeah. So Measure 114, right, is the permit to purchase, or one
Okay, right.
part of it
I think that's the one
is,
I was mentioning earlier. I talked about this in another podcast, but that's the Oregon one that required a statewide permitting system. Is that
yes,
okay?
yes. And that's the one that's currently all caught up in
Is all
the,
challenged and yeah,
yes,
and
yes.
even like I mentioned this in the other podcast, but like even when it passed, I remember just thinking, "There's no way that like the state was so public safety cash strapped at that time anyway." I'm like,
Hmm.
"There's no way they're going to have this huge permitting system, which
It's,
seems unconstitutional already."
yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Yes. But and mind you, it passed by like less than
It was a small
It
margin.
was like 0.7%
Oh
or
wow.
something like that.
Okay.
It really was not a lot of votes that pushed it over.
Yeah.
Um, but so the permitting system, and the way that my understanding is that the way that it's supposed to be set up is that you go through like this training and then you ask your local police department or sheriff's department, basically for permission
Hmm.
to be able to buy a firearm. Um, and in that process, there are multiple steps of like background checks and fingerprinting, and then some random person in, you know, the who's considered the permit agent,
Hmm.
um, gets to then make decisions around whether, you should be able to have a permit to purchase or not. So even if everything else comes back clear, right? You do your FBI background check, your regular background check, your state background check, and all of those other things, and then the permit agent says, "I don't know, I don't," you know,
It could
there's
still
some
deny you. Yeah.
psychological thing or somewhere like,
Well, yeah, and it still comes down to a
yeah,
human being deciding. Yeah.
exactly. Saying that I don't know, you have this kind of tendency. Um,
And
Therefore, we don't know, like, if you should, like, you might be
yeah.
a danger.
Well, I was thinking too, like, what's to stop them from just Googling that person and
Right,
like having a
exactly.
bias against them or something? Yeah.
Right. So now here is where I had connected that process to those historically racist laws. And you have places like South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Tennessee, Mississippi, all of those places, and even Delaware and New Jersey,
Hmm.
places where we wouldn't have thought that they were like necessarily against Black people.
Hmm.
Um, but those all had some form of gun control laws that were specifically for Black folks.
Really? Wow.
Yes. So you have all these specific race-based gun control, uh, or gun bans, permitting schemes.
When were these? Well, you're talking like recently or like when was it?
So those were, of course, 1640s. I
Sure.
know that. I think 1640 was, I believe, in Virginia. And then you have them all the way up to like 1800s,
Okay.
right? And I believe, I don't, I think it was like mid 1800s, right around or right before or right around the Civil War time frame.
Because
You
the
have
Second Amendment
places,
itself is way before that. When was that?
1791.
Okay.
Yeah, so between 1791 and, let's just stay within
It's like a
that
100-year
yeah, that time
range or
frame.
yeah.
Um, you had very specific anti-Black, anti-slave, anti-mulatto,
Hmm.
um, uh, gun control laws. Um, and they all were based on public safety.
Mm.
It was for the safety of white folks. It was for the safety of, those Black people who wanted to have firearms and protect themselves. Um, it and that's where I get really just frustrated because that's like the conversation that's not even happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't heard much about that at all. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Because I never even thought of it. Like, I would imagine, yeah, there was a lot of laws like that, but I just never thought about, you know, like you were saying, the Second Amendment was predated that by a
Mhm.
long time. But then there's
Mhm.
obviously all these laws to
Yes.
prevent people from having
Yeah.
firearms. Yeah.
Yeah. But and it's not just people overall. It very specific, right, to Black folks and biracial or multiracial people like myself
Mhm.
who present Black. Um, and but it wasn't or one of the other pieces here that's very important is the Dred Scott decision. Um,
Yeah, I saw you posting about that on Twitter too, and
mhm,
it's just funny because I don't know if you're like me, like I listen to a lot of the Supreme Court
mhm,
current cases,
mhm.
but yeah, I don't know. You could, I guess, unpack that for people who don't know, like how the importance of that.
Yeah. So the Dred Scott decision is basically it was Dred Scott who was a slave, and he and his wife had moved to, I believe it was Illinois, um, which was a free state, and within there, basically the claim he claimed that he is now a free person, and should not be returned to his former owner,
Hmm.
under the slave fugitive clause, right, or act, and basically. The whole gist of it is that you had the Supreme Court at that point in time. I believe it was 1857, so right before the Civil War, um, where the Supreme Court then said that, well, no, you are not citizens, and therefore you do not have any protections. And within that, or basically, the Chief Justice said that Black people were never to be part of the citizenship.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, and if they were, there is a very specific part in that decision that says, like, if they were, then Black people would be able to carry their firearms wherever they went,
Hmm.
and they would basically have the same rights that white people have.
But they're only saying if
Hmm.
at that point.
Yeah. So the Supreme Court was saying that if Black people were citizens, um, and now that is the this is why I say Juneteenth is incompatible with gun control,
Hmm.
because Juneteenth comes at basically the end of the Civil War,
Mhm.
right? Which is the June 19th, which is the day where um, you had Union forces go to stop in Galveston and tell basically the last group of folks in that state or in Texas, that there is no more,
So
no such thing as slavery in
yeah.
the Confederacy anymore.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, there's still slavery in places like Delaware. Delaware didn't give up their slavery until December 6th
There's like some
with the
holdout
with the
areas.
ratification of the 13th Amendment. But Juneteenth is this important date, or our holiday, June 19th, because it represents the um, basically the fact that Dred Scott was right the entire time,
Hmm.
right? Black people are citizens and therefore should receive the same constitutional protections as anybody else in this country. And therefore, gun control is incompatible with Juneteenth.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. No, that was really well explained. Actually, I like that. Uh, are there any like current? I know there was some stuff in this legislative session that people were really upset about, Second Amendment stuff. Is there anything like you want to mention that's really controversial? I mean, it's all controversial, I guess, but
Ooh,
and I think, well, I guess the session is over now, right? So
it is over,
yeah.
yeah. So I know that there were three main bills. I think there was HB 3075, which basically was just a repeal and replace Measure 114,
Okay. The
and then
permitting
yeah, the
stuff.
permitting thing,
Yeah.
and then add some other stuff with it. Um,
Was
and
that
then,
to make it more constitutionally clear or something, or
I mean, I guess.
because I didn't even know. Yeah, they were. It was just like a revamped version of that or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, it's still the same thing,
Okay.
still asking for permission.
Right.
And there's a nice little quote that was quoted in the News Register that's in Yamhill County.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll put it up here if I can find it. Yeah.
Yeah. I might have said something along the lines of, that it's 2025 and the state's is not my master, or I'm not a slave, and they're not my master, so therefore I shouldn't have to ask for permission. Um, which is kind of a play on words on some of those laws
Right.
that were passed. Um, and then we have HB 3076, which basically, from my understanding, would have created a separate kind of system to oversee the federal firearms licensees.
Okay.
So FFLs, so the folks that get to sell firearms in the
I
state.
see. Okay. Okay.
So like the gun stores, right? Those are FFLs,
Hmm.
or have an FFL.
They would create like a registry or database to oversee that.
Pretty much,
Okay.
yeah, because you have technically the understanding is that I think the ATF comes in on a regular basis and checks to make
Mhm.
sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
So this would be a second,
Yeah,
like at
this
the
would be
federal
like a
level.
state.
This is a state level.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
This would have been like a state one then. Just and then creating all kinds of additional hurdles, and which some folks said that would have pretty much um, shut down most of the FFLs in our state.
Hmm.
Um, and then you have SB 243, which
You're
um,
doing a great job explaining this, by the way. I was like,
I'm
you're just going off the dome here, and
I'm glad I am, because like it's so much, and and I'm surprised I haven't already like tried to look it up.
yeah.
But 240 SB 243 or Senate Bill 243 is around oh my goodness, banning what they consider rapid fire
Okay. I
activators.
remember hearing something about that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
It's like a modifier kind of law or something. Or, I don't know.
yeah, it's things like bump stocks, binary triggers, um and those. So there are many other folks that are probably way more knowledgeable
Mhm.
in terms of that
Those
those
accessories or
pieces,
whatever. Yeah.
yes, than I would be, because I like policy. My husband would be perfect for this, but yeah. So apparently it bans that, and then there was another part that was added at the very end that extends, I believe, the implementation date of Measure 114.
Okay. Pushes it further down the
Yes,
line
I
or something.
believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
So
That kind of to me just tells me too. It's just like it was so, I don't know, rushed is probably a generous word, but like I said back earlier in the episode, it just seems like even when that thing passed, I'm just like, this is so unrealistic. Like it doesn't to expect the state to do that and every county to do that is just like, first of all, unrealistic. Not even thinking about the
yeah,
legality of the federal constitutionality of it. It's
yeah,
just kind of
yeah.
crazy. But
And mind you, also you have places like North Carolina who actually repealed their permit to purchase
okay,
scheme. So and then you have, I believe it's 27, 28 states now that have constitutional carry
mm,
laws. So there's yeah, there's a lot going on.
yeah,
But Yeah. So 240 or SB 243, and I looked the other day at online, if you look at the testimony, there were, I believe, a total entries of around 2,500
Wow.
testimonies
Wow.
submitted. And I would probably say like 80% of those were in opposition. And it's still passed,
Yeah.
right? And it's still this, we're just going to do it anyway.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking, what are your thoughts on the state legislature and like because I don't know, I've talked a lot on here about the supermajority, and
Hmm.
in my opinion, it's just that'll just continue as long as there's this engine of unions feeding the Democrats supermajority, and I don't know that anything's really going to change in the near future with that, and it's frustrating, but it's also like I think this session was like I was kind of amazed that like the transportation thing failed. Now they're going to try to like revive it and stuff, but it just seemed really dysfunctional, even though there is this supermajority. But I'm just curious, like, I don't know, do you think it'll ever change? And do you have any thoughts on just the functionality of the legislature?
Oh man.
I
Man, that's a big one.
know there's a lot to think about in there, but
Well, so one of the most frustrating pieces for me, I think, is that when I look at the things that are being passed and I look at, for example, like the transportation bill, or SB 243 being passed and it having this like massive fiscal attached to it,
right,
right? And but you have Oregonians overwhelmingly saying, we don't want this,
right, right.
right? In both of those instances, you had SB 243, just based on the entries of testimony,
Hmm.
um, overwhelmingly saying, we don't want this. Don't pass it. This is crazy. Um, the transportation bill, right? And I'm sure there are so many good things in there. Um, but when you have Oregonians saying, no, please don't
Hmm.
do this, like we can't survive as it is, don't add any more taxes
Right.
to all the burden that we already have.
And it was kind of amazing to me to see that thing fall apart when you even have Democrats defecting and saying
Yeah.
like we could, because obviously I would
Yes.
imagine they're just getting pressure from their constituents saying what you're saying of like
Right.
we
Right.
can't afford any of this
Yeah.
stuff.
So I think it's just, uh, but then for legislators to still come out and be like, no, we need to pass this. But then you look at some of the other bills where they said that had maybe like, I don't know, 1.5 million price tag, like fiscal on it, right? But it would give money to, I don't know, a local, mm, to support mental health services,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Or the special education, spending cap, removing that cap. Can't do that because, that increases the fiscal,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Now that costs too much money. We can't do that. However, we can pass these bills that are overwhelmingly, you know, Oregonians are overwhelmingly in opposition to it, um, versus these bills where you have people from both sides of the aisle saying, we kind of need this,
Hmm.
right? Because you have Democrat parents who have kids with disabilities, and you have Republican parents with kids who with
Yeah, it's a
disabilities, right?
bipartisan issue. Yeah.
I mean, really? Um, so, but then I I don't know if it is sustainable the way that the Oregon legislature does things.
Mm.
Um, I think that from a perspective of an advocate, of someone who engages with family members and parents across the state and talks about, things like special education, things like restraint and seclusion, things like mental health, and our kids and our families just really needing support, and that support not ever coming.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but politicians kind of patting themselves on the back for passing something that we didn't ask for in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or only like a small group of people, very loud people, asked for and demanded, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it is wild because it's like I talk about it so much on different episodes, more in the homelessness realm of
yeah,
like, because there's so much talk up here, and especially in Portland, about the pipeline to getting people into housing and also all the mental health services. But like the conversation always comes to a stop when it's like the state doesn't really have any mental health service. Like,
right,
you know,
right.
they have very limited amounts of what they can do with like state facilities and stuff for, and I'm talking adults, and I know
Mm-hmm.
you're talking more younger folks, but both of them, it just seems like I totally agree with what you're saying of like, there's a lot of conversation and backpatting about it, but there's not really a lot of action when it comes to
No.
like throwing like a serious effort at really addressing mental health in Oregon. And I don't know, I've heard from like I did a podcast with I don't know if you know Sharon Myron.
Mm-hmm.
She was a county commissioner up here for a long time. She's an ER doctor and really passionate about mental health. But she, I've just heard that like we're one of the worst states for mental health, and
Yeah,
it's just amazing because like you're saying, these state legislatures, like if you would just listen to them, they're like you would think everything's fantastic,
yeah,
but it's not.
yeah, yes,
So it's just I don't know. It's kind
yeah.
of drives me crazy.
It's funny because I have this quote actually on my email, and let
Yeah,
me see
pull
if
it
I
up.
can
Yeah,
pull it up. It's
like on your email tag or
my signature block. It's a quote by this a gentleman called Glenn E. Martin,
okay.
who is a an advocate in around prison systems and folks who were in prison and or are in prison currently, and ensuring that there is a good aftercare plans in
Mm-hmm.
place
So there's no
and
recidivism and
right, right,
yeah.
right. And so he says, or he's used, or he said this one quote saying, "People closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but furthest from power and resources."
Hmm.
So I like that quote because um, it it demonstrates really just how difficult it is for like totally normal regular folks to get the point across of what they need,
Mm-hmm.
how they need it, when they need it, and then for those empowered to actually listen to what we're saying.
Yeah, that translates to them, and they
Yes.
can you know take some action from that, and
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Um, yeah, no, it is. It's incredibly frustrating sometimes. I was curious too. Is that ever something you've considered, like getting into that, like getting into running for something? Right?
Um, I have, and then I'm like, I'm right now. I'm at a point where I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's hard at the state level too because that stuff, like if you want to make a career out of it, I'm not saying. I don't know. This might sound kind of weird to people, but it doesn't really pay that much. So you basically have to have a regular job and do
Mm-hmm.
that, which is challenging, I think.
Right.
And I know there's been conversation over the years about like changing legislators' pay.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people. Like, I don't think, I don't think it should be like a crazy, insane amount, but I also
Mm.
think it might be too low right now. But I could understand that, like, that would be something I would wrestle with if I was like considering running. Is like, well, then I'd have to like give up all my other time and stuff, and I don't know.
Yeah, probably, but for me personally, I don't think that's
That's not the issue.
that's necessarily the issue. I think, because I mean, I probably would be making more, personally, honestly. um, but no, for me personally, it's one of those things. So like, the Democrat Party in the state is not going to touch me with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
Um, when I reached out to the Republican Party, it was like, we don't know. You need to start all the way down at the bottom and then work your way up. And I'm like, but I don't want to be a career politician, for one. And two, I know absolutely nothing about city ordinances,
Right.
municipalities.
City level.
My experience and expertise and knowledge is around policy at the state level and even federal, right? So because of having to deal with the VA and stuff like that, or the Departments of Veterans Affairs, because of my husband. But yeah, it's just this, and I'm like, I don't necessarily fit into either category.
Right. You know, fit into a nice little box that
Yeah.
anyone wants. Yeah.
And I mean, I used to be a registered libertarian, but the Libertarian Party in Oregon is like very fringe. And I'm like,
I wanted to say too,
so
like
what?
I went to the Multnomah County Libertarian meeting here, and shout out to them, like they're a good little group.
Yeah.
But that's like kind of my issue with them, is that like they just seem to be stuck in this track of like making zero progress on anything, getting, in my opinion, bad candidates, and they just don't go anywhere, and it's frustrating. But I can see how, like, I'm kind of the same way. Like, I went to that meeting and I was like, this is, I guess, what I'm closest to.
Yes.
Because I don't really I don't identify closely with any of these parties.
Yeah.
So I feel that struggle for sure. And
Yeah.
I was going to say too, because I actually did have on here, I was going to get your thoughts on, I think you caught my attention a long time ago, because like, I think you kind of bring some of the reason, like there's people who online who are really passionate about like the Oregon GOP, and sometimes I think that they don't like level set in their head. So I was going to get like your take on that, but because I think I remember you posting about stuff, and I'm like, yes, thank God somebody is like checking these folks, because there's people who don't live in Portland who always think like we can flip this state red and we're going to change all this stuff, and I'm just like, just come visit Portland. Like, you will see it in a heartbeat. Like, there's millions of people who will just cancel out any of these thoughts.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah. So, but I was just curious, like on your thoughts about the future of that party here in Oregon and like their challenges. And I just think sometimes they get a little delusional about things, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
So I think what will be important for the Republican Party in this state, because, okay, let me backtrack a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
I think folks, even across the country, have this idea that Oregon is like very blue. That's not the case.
It's a little more purple.
It is a little bit more purple. Like, it is, you have a lot of very moderate Democrats. Then you have, the libertarians. Then you have conservatives. Then you have like classical liberals like myself.
That's how I identify too, by the way. I'm still a registered Democrat, and I'm like, I call myself like an old school liberal, I guess.
Yeah. And what's funny is that, because I actually I consider myself a kind of like a Frederick Douglass classical liberal type person, which I guess would fall more into the Republican area. But yeah, the whole classical liberal piece is a whole nother story.
There's so many things that have changed in the past 10 years.
Yeah, because now you have, because like you have the definition of classical liberal, and then you have modern, and then you have postmodern liberal, and then you have progressive liberalism, and then, oh my gosh, and it's like all of those things, right? But yeah, no, me very much like, I want all the liberties all the time. That's what,
Individual freedom.
yes,
Yeah.
individual freedom. I don't mess with you, you don't mess with me, and we're good,
Yeah.
right? And then there are certain things that we all agree upon that should definitely be, against the law, like murder. Like, you can't just go out and murder people. Just can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't go out and just rape someone just because you decide that that's, a cool thing to do today.
Yeah.
Right? Those are very kind of classical liberal type things. Now, in terms of the Republican Party in the state of Oregon.
Yeah. It's kind of a mess. Everyone up here that I talk to, they're like, it's just like a bunch of crazy people, and it's kind of a mess. But
I
wish they would get more traction, but it just seems like a struggle.
I think there are a lot of really good and meaningful people that are in both parties, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But when we're talking about just the Republican Party and if they could, actually gain any traction, one of the things that I keep trying to call out is don't do what Democrats have done over the last, 10, 15 years, just in the opposite.
Right.
That's not going to get you anywhere, especially not in this state. And I've only lived here in this state since 2012.
Okay.
Right? But having lived in, somewhere in places like Brookings, and then now out in Yamhill County, and having gotten to know so many different people across the state, most people are just like, I just want to be left alone. I don't want Salem, Portland, Eugene, and every once in a while Corvallis to tell me how to live out here.
Right. Miles away. That.
Right. Right. I don't mess with them. Why do they constantly mess with me? Right. And that's a very kind of, libertarian, classical liberal, whatever kind of view to take.
Yeah.
So, but you have some folks in the GOP, in the Oregon GOP, who are very conservative, right?
Less on the kind of moderate middle. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so they're less in the in the moderate middle area, but very conservative, and kind of, there are some folks who are like, well, we need to impose all of these things onto, the other side, and I'm like, now you're doing the exact same thing.
I see. Yeah.
That Democrat that you complained about the Democrats doing for so many years, and now you don't, like, you're going to do the same thing. Let's not.
Yeah.
And that's not how you're going to flip any state red.
Totally. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And that's what it's like. I've had conversations with people too about, like, that's like, I just tell people, like, if you ever want to kind of unlock Portland voters, that's the only way you do it, is you got to build this moderate bridge, find common ground, and don't just demonize, like you're just saying, like the exact same thing. The left does the right. Like, that game plan is never going to work in Oregon, in my opinion. And I agree with you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other part was, so one of the things that I've been, I don't want to say passionate about, but one of the things that's kind of been weighing on me a little bit is, you have nationwide, right? The GOP, you look at places like Texas and Florida and even Ohio, and Virginia, who just, there's, I forget her name, but she is like the first Black female to run for governor. And if she becomes the first Black female, to win, she will literally be the first Black female
making history
governor. Yeah. Just making history. And she's running as a Republican. And I'm like, I understand that the GOP in this state doesn't want to talk about race. Got it. Get it. I understand. But what you don't want to do is do the exact opposite of what you've had a lot of progressives do over the last few years. And over the last few years, it was just all things race all the time.
Mm.
Blame everything on racism, blame everything on white supremacy, and blame everything on white people, particularly, straight white men.
It's kind of a race obsessed kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. So now all the problems that we see, right, when we're looking at, anything from mental health, school expulsions to, the disproportionality of young Black boys in the juvenile justice system, everything blamed on racism.
It's one of those, you find a disparity and you just go, well,
It's racism.
It's gotta be, yeah.
Yes. However, that allows the system to then say, don't know what to do with it. We can't fix racism. We can't fix white supremacy. It's not we can't do it. So right now we're just going to call it out and we'll just let it sit there. But then that fosters on the other side, right? On the very conservative side of the Republican Party, who are like, we don't want to talk about race. We have we don't want to we don't see color, right? Which, I mean, really, you look at me and you don't see my skin color. Yeah. Come on, that's just dumb in itself. But, but then just to not even have a discussion about it, right? Mm-hmm. Or calling everything DEI, and then kind of connecting Blackness with DEI, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it's this negative thing,
right?
And I'm like, y'all don't do that,
yeah,
right? Don't do that. If you or using the 14th Amendment, right, to saying, oh, right, you cannot treat one person differently over another based on their skin. True. And you can't just see, or you can't necessarily look at just the acronym DEI and then automatically think that that's anti-white racism.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I think that's really important middle ground to find, because I think people just, like you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, people reject nuance. And I think that's part of it, is like you said, people go too far in one direction.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'd agree with what you were saying. For the most part, there is on the right, a conversation to just shut down anything related to race. And then up here, it's still in Portland up here, it's insanely race obsessed. But a good example of that I always point to is for people on the right who don't want to talk about it. First of all, I don't know, people, I guess probably, I don't know, but the Oregon Constitution had all this racist stuff in it for a long time.
Yeah.
But then also in Portland up here, there's just a lot of horrible displacement and stuff for Black neighborhoods that happened, I believe, I don't know, the 40s, 50s, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So it is I think it needs to be part of the conversation, but you said, there's a balance in there. Yes. I think that needs to be healthy.
Yeah.
And that's, it's super important stuff. I was going to get, I don't know, maybe I'll edit this out, but I was curious, I want to get your take on a controversial thing.
Uh-oh. Oh, geez. Okay.
What did you see the, I don't know, I don't think, I guess to some people this isn't funny, but did you see the drag performance thing? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I can put a clip of it in, but.
Yeah.
What did you think about that? Was that important? Was that necessary?
Okay. So here's nuance again, right? Which apparently is a bad thing.
Because I'm open to it, but I also think it's just it's kind of laughable when you see it on video and stuff. And
okay. So there is several different pieces here for me. Okay. And in and of itself, I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah.
At all. I mean, I think it's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's form of expression.
Yeah.
Right?
And I would say two things. I've been to drag shows up here and stuff. Yes. I have friends in that community, and And also, I'm supposed to have the guy who set that thing up, Travis Nelson, on the show.
Oh, cool.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
just having the
that'd
conversation
be
because
great.
a lot
Yeah.
of people clipped it and we're just like, what is going on in Oregon? And
Right. Right. And so I think overall, again, right, totally. I think a lot of those folks are just absolutely fabulous, and I'm jealous of their ability to their makeup ability.
right.
Like I just like I can barely get mascara on. Um and and to me, like that's the libertarian in me, right? Like I'm just like, I don't really
Yeah,
care.
like you do you.
You do
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
right? It's beautiful. And then at the same time, what bothered me about it is that it was in conjunction with Juneteenth.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
That is what bothered me.
I didn't even remember that until you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was that connection that was made between kind of like the history of Black drag to Juneteenth. And I'm like, that's not even what Juneteenth is
They're
about.
kind of different
Like,
issues. Yeah.
it's not.
Right.
And then you have that added part of Juneteenth where apparently people think that Juneteenth is this like racial unity thing. And
Hmm.
I'm like, no, it's not. Um,
It's a very clear, like, yeah, there's a liberation moment.
yes,
Yeah.
it's a very American based holiday,
Yeah.
right? It's a celebration um, of just liberation and emancipation and like part of this part of a different events that then eventually led to the 14th Amendment or the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. And just for me, that part was frustrating.
To kind of co-opt it into this
Yes.
other issue. Yeah.
Yes. While I'm over here, like every day for 2 weeks before Juneteenth, reminding everybody, like, hey, the colors are red, white, and blue, not green, black, red, and whatever.
Yeah.
It's not a Pan-African, racial unity holiday. It's an American holiday that we have celebrated. And yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. If you want to add, the African pride stuff in it because that's your ancestry, that's fine. But the core of Juneteenth really is an American holiday, particularly Texas.
Because that's where it happened, right?
Right. Well, I mean, Texas has made it an official holiday. I think it was in 1980.
Okay.
So it's been an official holiday in several states for several
long time,
years and decades. Yeah. So it's not a made up thing. Again, with the Republican Party, you have a lot of folks who are like, oh, it's this made up, Juneteenth is this made up racial or race-based holiday. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah. It's been around
right? It's been around. We've been celebrating it forever and a day. There has been multiple resolutions at the federal level, to get it to actually become a federal holiday. So it's nothing new. But that I think around when it comes to the video of these beautiful people just being on the floor and expressing themselves, but it's the connection to Juneteenth. In addition to that, what I will say a few years ago, my representative actually did a courtesy, or like one of her courtesies, and she named me. And I had a shirt on that said "All gun control is racist," but I wasn't allowed to be on the floor.
Because of that?
Because it was just, it's
too distracting.
I don't remember what word they used. It was like too political.
They're like, we don't want to platform gun issues.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm like,
which actually
okay.
seems more relevant than the drag
more relevant.
stuff.
Yeah, more relevant to Juneteenth than that would. Now, in terms of like discrimination and things like that, right? Yes, of course. I mean, Black drag, and discrimination, those go hand in hand. But those are just, I guess those are the two things where I'm just like, man,
Yeah.
like, why wasn't I
No,
allowed on the floor? But
that totally makes sense.
that
Yeah.
gets to, yeah.
That totally makes sense. Let me see here. I was gonna ask real quick about, and then I'll get into some of these goofy questions about what are like because you were posting a lot about the problems with the VA.
Uh-huh.
Is there anything you want to say about that? Like, is that federal, state,
Oh,
or I know the
that
VA has
is,
kind of always had issues. Like, I had a friend years ago who worked at the VA hospital up here,
mhm.
and it just sounded like, I don't know, it's everything I would expect from a bureaucratic kind of hospital, and it just seems slow, and
Yeah.
services are hard to get, and
Well, oh, I mean, the VA. The VA is, so I will say my husband has had overall fantastic doctors.
okay,
Um, so the doctors are not necessarily the issue.
right,
It's the behind the scenes that's the issue. And then in addition to that, there was there's this program called VRNE, which used to be called Voc Rehab or Vocational Rehabilitation, and it was changed to Veterans Readiness and Employment Program or something like that,
okay,
which is the VRNE. Um,
and that's like when you get out of service, they help you or supposed to
yeah,
help you.
pretty much. It's like at any point in time when you have a veteran who because of their disability or service connected disabilities are not able to receive or obtain and then maintain suitable and meaningful employment. And what they're supposed to be doing is help veterans actually receive or help them get through um, uh, or obtain like education so that they can get
Okay,
um,
they're more job ready, or
yeah.
yeah.
There are different tracks. One you have just plain kind of like job ready track where they funnel you into um, or they help you obtain, a federal job or
Some
things like that.
placement, yeah,
Yeah, and then you have the track where there's also an independent living track, which is basically for those veterans who need like an avocational goal, like what some people might call an hobby or a hobby,
sure,
right? Um, in order for them to just gain more daily
yeah,
daily activity, living skills. Um, and then, of course, like I said earlier, you have the other track where they help you actually receive education and to technically to the point where you need in order for you to become employed in a particular vocation.
hmm
So, one of the biggest struggles that we've had so far, and there are so many other veterans out there that are struggling with this very same thing, is that the folks in this program say that they have to save money. So they only give veterans like a bachelor's degree and then that's it. And then they say, well, now you can go become whatever, right?
it stops at the bachelor's,
Right.
yeah,
Even though the law specifically states that no, the veteran needs to be employed. I mean, needs to receive the education and the training, all the way up to the point where they can become employed in the vocation that they have chosen,
mm-hmm.
and that's feasible for them.
So if you want to be like a doctor, that
Hmm.
wouldn't really work
No,
because,
it would. Yes, there are folks who went through the program that have become lawyers, that are becoming doctors, that are
or I guess what I'm
right.
saying is like they would only support it up to the bachelor level.
They're not supposed to,
Okay.
and that's the issue. So they are supposed to actually support the person. So if the veteran says, "I want to become a lawyer," right? Um, and that veteran's doctor says, yeah, I mean, he can do it or she can do it, or, yes, they can absolutely, I think, even with their service-connected disabilities, this is a good
Mhm.
vocational option for them. This program is supposed to help the veteran receive their bachelor's degree, get help with like studying for the LSAT, right? And then taking the LSAT, and then get into or apply to law schools. And then once they get into a law school, then also help them through law school. So
Okay. All
basically
that, the
pay
bar and all
the
that.
whole thing.
Okay.
Yes. And so it's not just necessarily just paying for, right, the education, but also making sure that the veteran has, um, if they need like, I don't know, mental health services or whatever, and they are struggling with getting access to it, the counselor or the vocational rehabilitation counselor is supposed to help them get access to that so that they can continue on their
Yeah.
path.
It's like whatever they need to keep going through
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but VRNE is not doing that.
Mm.
And there are so many veterans that are just not getting it.
Mm.
Um,
So if they want to pursue a career in any particular direction, they might not necessarily get all the
right.
services and
Right.
guidance and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there are some folks who are just the experiences, like some of the things I've seen and heard is like shaming veterans for not paying for their own
Mm. Those type of services.
yeah. And to me it's like, well, they went to war, right? They
Mhm.
did all those things. They've paid for that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I
Well,
mean,
you would think, yeah, the VA,
like
that's like the whole reason for the VA is,
it's
you know,
supposed to be the entire purpose of the VA,
yeah.
right? But yeah, and so I'm trying to get folks' attention because right now the attention really is around, oh, well, we don't want to pay for DEI stuff,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Um, it's that
All
the
gets mixed up in there.
yeah, right. It's the VA is focusing on all the wonderful, beautiful, big things that get them, a lot of attention, saying,
Sure.
oh, yeah, you're getting rid of DEI. Wonderful. Okay, cool. We still have thousands of veterans in this program across the nation that's not getting or who are not getting the
Right.
services or the entitlements that they were promised.
Yeah.
And they're being forced to appeal it, and it's still not getting anywhere. And then you have veterans who end up not actually ever getting a degree or the ability to get into the vocation that they chose.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's really important too, because I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong with this, but I feel like, big blue cities like we're in here, there's almost like an anti-veteran
Mhm.
thing. Like I've talked to city councilors. There's only 2 veterans in our 12-member city council up here who are veterans. And first of all, that seems like a small percentage of 12.
Yeah.
But it's also just like they don't even like normally when I was growing up in like campaigns and stuff, if you're a veteran, you're like putting that as a badge of like
Yeah.
honor, which
Yeah.
it should be. But up here, it's kind of like something you hide, and like
Yeah.
it's just kind of weird to me. So I feel like it's like almost like this double pressure of, like you were saying, that the anti-DEI stuff kind of not wiping out, but really kind of reducing some of those services, even if that's like a secondary effect. But
hmm
but then also in these blue cities, you have like this weird pressure from that sense as well. So it's like nobody wins in
Yeah.
with the VA, and it just sucks because throughout my whole life, people have been talking about we need to give more money to the VA and to help our veterans, and it
Yeah.
just seems like an obvious thing.
It
But
seems so, yeah. But
yeah,
I will say that even like the VA has consistently received like an increase, right, in their
every
budget.
year, yeah.
Every year they're getting more and more money, more and more money. But for some reason,
It just doesn't filter.
It doesn't
down.
filter down to the veteran themselves. And every time it says, well, we don't have the money. We don't have right? Very similar to what we at the state level are feeling, right?
Yeah. It's a common theme with like the school system, anything
Yeah.
like that, where it just gets absorbed by the admin
Yes.
folks or whatever they're doing.
Yeah. It's like, where's the money going?
But it doesn't filter down. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, is there anything else you want to say about that? I was going to ask, like, was there anything else you want to mention about your Northwest story? I just think it's cool. You kind of grew up on like a German base or something.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
spent some time on there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. I am, like I said earlier, I'm an Army rep.
Yeah.
Um, I grew up in several different places.
You're just moving from different
Moving,
military
yes,
places. Yeah.
yes. Like I have lived in Germany. I've lived in Wisconsin. We've lived in Florida, Kansas, Virginia,
Wow.
like all kinds of different places.
I've only ever lived in Oregon, so
Yeah,
I'm
it
jealous.
definitely gives you a kind of like a different outlook.
Yeah. You have exposure to all these different places.
Yes, yes, a very, very different outlook. And I think that's one of my biggest struggles, I think, kind of being part of some of these committees and councils and getting engaged in advocacy is that you have a lot of folks who may have been just like very Portland and very Salem centered.
Yeah.
And here I come in like a wrecking ball with, but right, I haven't seen this happen in this state, right? Or
Right.
this state does it differently. And they're like, but this is Oregon. And I'm like, I get that, but it doesn't seem to be working what we're doing, right?
A fresh take on the status quo.
Yes, yes. Oregon, does its own thing, which I think is beautiful, and I guess at the same time, it's okay to take some pointers from other folks.
Yeah.
Right? Every once in a while, it should be okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else serious you want to talk about before I get into these funny questions? Anything on your mind?
I don't know. Well, maybe just one thing.
Sure.
I think earlier we kind of like slightly started talking about some of the race stuff. I think one of the important things to note is that, especially like when I talk to Portland folks, there's this idea that basically all Black people are the same.
Yeah.
Right? If one Black person tells you they believe in this, basically,
that's the law of the
land.
Yeah.
All Black people think that. Yet here I am, right? Super like staunch 2A advocate, and very much say that no, we need to be able to educate our young Black men around firearms ownership, firearm use, because right now all we're doing is basically saying, nope, you shouldn't have them. Don't touch it. Don't do it.
It's like you're not allowed. Just
don't do it, right? Because you're killing each other, which, yeah, right? That's a very valid point. But at the same time, we're not teaching our young Black men, particularly our young Black men around about things like, or people like Bass Reeves and Eugene Birkins, right? Those are folks who contributed, oh my word, Otis McDonald from the Chicago v. McDonald, City of Chicago v. McDonald decision. And those are, hi, baby.
She's just getting hungry. Come
Oh my goodness.
here.
I mean, I love dogs. I have dogs too. So, but yeah, it's really, and that's just one part of kind of the let's not look at all Black people as being the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it does totally make sense too, because I hear a lot up here about. I totally feel this way of like, have you ever? I'm sure you've heard the whole soft bigotry of racism thing,
Yes.
and that's like all that I see is going on up here in Portland is like a bunch of white people saying like, we know what's best for Black people, and because
Oh,
they can't do anything, and
you poor Black folks have,
right,
you all need all the reparations and
yeah,
you need it all. And we know how to get rid of all your pain.
yeah, and
Right.
it is also like this built-in thing of like, we know you guys aren't capable of like anything, which is
Right.
just like it's just so racist, but
Yes.
there's a lot of that goes on up here, and I feel like.
Yes.
But and there's also a complexity to it. Like I know people up here in the Portland area. Like I was gonna say, shout out to John, my friend John Turan, who ran for city council. But he's a big like gun guy, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just interesting that like you're saying, like I think a lot of mostly white people up here would be like just assume that Black people don't like guns or
Yeah,
like shouldn't have them, like you said. But
exactly.
then there's like people who I don't know. I know a decent amount of people like you and John who are like, no, it's better to take the approach of like educate people how these things work and
Yep.
just have experience with them. And I don't know. It just seems
Yes.
like that's a smarter path to go down. But
It definitely is. And I
yeah.
mean, considering there are actually a lot more Black gun owners in this state than
Really?
folks might believe.
Yeah.
Yes. But it's a very kind of like hush hush
It's like a
thing.
taboo thing.
Yeah, it's like, well, we don't want to expose ourselves as being gun owners because then all of a sudden, right now we're seeking proximity to whiteness,
Mm.
which I have been accused of, by the way, too. But or or right, we're not Black enough. Like we're not politically Black. We
Mm.
are,
Right, right,
yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot going on in Oregon. I'm just making sure I'm not missing anything here that I was going to ask about. Okay, I'll get into some of these. Do you have a favorite Dorito or Takis flavor?
Okay, I don't eat Takis.
Takis are pretty extreme.
Yeah, no. Mm-mm. I like spicy. Like I like spicy, but that's just not
They're
even.
kind of crazy. Like they get, I would say it's the number one thing that you're eating that gets stuff on your hands. Like
Yeah.
your hands get so dirty eating
Oh yeah.
Takis.
Yeah. No. Doritos. Probably Cool Ranch.
Okay. Seems
But
like the most popular
well,
flavor.
that's likely because like my daughter, she
It's kind of her
loves
choice.
Cool Ranch, and I mean, I just eat what she has.
Okay. Um, I haven't asked this one. When you're parking somewhere, like say it's like a shopping center and there's
Mhm.
regular, do you pull in normally or do you back in?
I back in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
I know it annoys people, but that's okay.
It seems like do you think that has anything to do with like your military growing up in that environment? Because I feel like a lot of military people back in is
I
like a
don't know.
precision thing or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
I like it though. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think it's just easier just to get out.
right. Yeah. It's quick.
That's what I think about. Like, I don't want to run people over because every time I just pull in, it's like it takes me forever to
Gotta be
get
doing
out.
this.
Yeah.
Do you like crunchy or smooth peanut butter? Or maybe you don't like peanut butter.
I absolutely hate peanut butter.
Really?
Yeah.
You're probably like the second or third person I've had that says that. But
Yeah. No,
do you like any like other butters like almond or any of that stuff?
I love almonds.
Just regular
Almonds.
Okay.
Yes, but just regular almonds. I
Okay.
like any like almond butter. Okay, Nutella is probably
Okay. I
That's
would
my
accept
thing.
that as part of the family.
that's hazelnuts. Yes,
Yeah.
Nutella. I'm down for.
That stuff
Like,
is so good. Yeah.
yes.
Uh, do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite fast food? Or are you more like healthy eater?
I don't necessarily have a favorite fast food place,
That's okay.
but I don't know. Is Panera Bread fast food? I guess it is, isn't that?
It's a little upper echelon.
Yeah.
I've actually never been to Panera. I don't think I've ever been.
They actually have a really good. Oh my goodness! It's like a southwestern something Chipotle something. I don't remember what it is, but it's
Sandwich?
yeah.
Okay.
It's actually really good. It's on the spicy side, but it's really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Do you have a favorite type of French fry? Do you like crinkle cut, regular cut, curly fries, waffle fries?
Um, I
I also accept
like.
tater tots as part of that. I think they're part of the French fry family.
Well, okay, so it depends. Um, A, on how much they are.
Yeah. In this
Um,
economy, no.
yeah, no. Um, well, okay, so this is coming from like who someone who used to be like a coupon queen. Like I
Mm,
used to coupon like there was no tomorrow. Um, but yeah, no, I like curly fries.
okay.
Curly fries. And if I have to get just regular plain old fries, it's probably shoestring. However, I have to put Creole seasoning on it.
I don't know if I've ever had that
It
actually.
is amazing.
You're talking like a powder or
Yeah,
like okay.
Tony's, yes, Tony's
I'll
Creole
have to try that
seasoning.
out. Is
Oh
that
yes.
kind of well? Because I've had Cajun fries. Is it kind of
Sort of, yeah.
similar to that?
Yeah,
Okay.
sort of.
I feel like because I used to get them from Five Guys,
Hmm.
and I feel like they overdo it. Like,
Yeah.
I think their thing is like you get the big bag of fries and it's like greasy at the
Yeah.
bottom, and but they put a lot. They put too much on. Maybe I don't know. But I want to try that Creole powder, that Creole
Yes. Yes.
seasoning. Do you? Let's say you're getting ice cream somewhere. Do you go waffle cone, regular cone, cup?
That depends. So if I am driving, it's got to be waffle cone so I can hold
Okay.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Not that
A
I'm
one-handed thing.
not that I'm actually, driving and eating.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, if I'm in the car, it's probably waffle cone.
Okay.
Now, however, if I am in, just walking downtown McMinnville, for example, um, it's going to be in a cup because I get there. There's a store downtown, um, ice cream store, and they have the brownie. It's like a
Mm,
brownie a la mode thing.
that sounds good.
Yes, it's
Is it because
amazing.
that's what I was asked what flavor would that be your go-to flavor? What?
Probably, but it's vanilla.
Okay.
I love vanilla or
And
maple nut.
and that's like I should ask this earlier. That's your closest town or city.
Mhm.
Okay. Because it kind of ties in. I always ask people. Uh, I'll get through this. Do you believe in aliens, Bigfoot, or ghosts?
Okay, that's a um technically no.
Okay.
However, I love, 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 love watching like ghost shows
Really?
and those alien shows. Love it.
I'm really surprised that the ghost ones are like still going. Like
Oh,
every once in a while, like I had these guests on recently who watch one, but I'll meet people all the time who are like, we're way into like this current ghost show, and I'm like, they're
yeah.
still going. Like, how are
Yes.
they?
I
But
love it.
people love them, yeah.
I love it. I mean, between those like true crime, like Deadly Women, right? Like the
Yeah.
typical, right?
I love Forensic Files. It's classic.
Oh
But
my
yeah.
gosh, yes. No, but there's one show. It's called Ghost Brothers.
Okay.
Love it.
I've
And
never
I'm
heard of
so
that one.
mad that they haven't like actually came out with new seasons.
Okay.
So now I have to like track them down on YouTube and watch their YouTube things. But yeah, no, I don't know. I just anything that has to do with the paranormal. It's one of those things where like I can totally nerd out
Yeah. I
and
like it
like,
too.
yeah.
I'm really into it. Well, the tie-in was because I totally forgot to ask when I had some paranormal guys on here, but they had went to the McMinnville UFO Festival,
Mhm.
and I've always wanted to go to that, but that's why I was like kind of trying to tie that in with
Oh
the
yeah,
UFO question. But
you have got to go.
is it pretty cool?
Oh yeah, it's fun.
I've always wanted to go because don't they do like a star party thing where
Yeah.
people go in a field and you can like watch for UFOs or whatever?
Yeah, they do. It's like at the McMenamins hotel. They always host folks there that do like all the paranormal stuff, which I haven't gotten. I haven't been able to go there yet, but um with kids and all, because there is no way. But like the parade,
Yeah, they do like a whole
hands
thing in
down,
town, right? Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah.
Love it.
I've always wanted to go to that. Let's see here. Um, do you do you want to do some nut rankings? I normally do like cheese or nut rankings, but
Mhm.
do you have like favorite? I always go. I'm trying to remember now. Pistachio. There's one I always forget. Pistachio, almond, peanut, something like that. I also like cashews.
Hmm.
I don't know. You can just throw out some favorites too. You don't have to.
Love pistachios.
Okay.
Yes. Almonds, but they have to be like in my cereal or
Oh, that's cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Love almonds in my cereal. Pepper jack cheese.
Pepper jack. It's good.
Absolutely, hands down, favorite cheese.
Okay. I like that. It's a very I think that's when people called out for being versatile. Like you can kind of put it on
Oh yeah.
anything and it's just
Oh yeah.
great.
My husband, he makes my husband, he sometimes he'll smoke a brisket
Hmm.
and when if we get a big enough brisket, we can actually eat that brisket for like 2-3 days after, right?
Mm.
And one of the things that I actually make, and my husband's best friend actually, I guess they came up with it together. But we cut up the brisket in like tiny little, just tiny little cubes, and then put it into a quesadilla. I mean, in a tortilla,
Hmm.
and put pepper jack cheese on it, and a little bit of barbecue sauce in it.
Mm.
Let it all melt, and make your own like little brisket quesadilla. It's
That
amazing.
sounds so good. It's
Yeah.
like my stomach's like growling. It sounds really good. Because I always ask about Taco Bell too, and it almost sounds like something like a Taco Bell like fusion thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure yours is way better than whatever they would make, but yeah, I always give people a chance to like shout out. Is there a good local restaurant or business you went to recently you want to shout out?
Well, I mean, earlier I was talking about the ice cream Serendipities on in McMinnville on 3rd Street.
Okay.
Amazing. I also have my hat. There's in Yamhill County, there's a nonprofit called With Courage, and they do a lot of outreach to women who have been diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mm.
Yeah,
Support and all that stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. That's cool.
supporting them, and yeah.
That's cool. Cool. Yeah. Well, yeah, normally, is there like what's the best place for people to reach you? Is it Twitter or?
X is gonna be it.
Okay.
Yeah,
'Cause I
yeah,
always just give people a chance to like put your website or whatever, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'll put it
No, I
up.
mean, I mean, I'm trying to do a Substack thing, but
Oh, really?
yeah.
I'll put the link on here. I didn't know that. Yeah.
But well, I haven't been able to write anything on
It's
there
like
yet, so
coming.
we're
It's
maybe
in the works. Yeah.
sometime soon. Yeah, but no, X is gonna be it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even know. It's what Alisha the Contrarian, and I think the handle itself is Contrarian_AO.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll put it on screen here and stuff. But yeah, thanks so much for coming. You're always welcome back. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah, let's do it again. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks.